I guess if I had to give this story a title, it would be an army truck, a Toyota Land Cruiser, 3 Jeeps, and a Russian fighter plane. In 4 minutes. I took 3 graduate students in 1991 to Far East Russia to do some geology work over there associated with the university. We had some hosts, and we drove around this area north of Vladivostok called the Primorye Range, which was very remote. To this day, it's one of the few enclaves of Siberian tigers left in the Russian, in fact, all of Russia. I was going to say the Russian Far East. It's very mountainous, it's very remote, a few villages, a lot of mines, and as it turns out, military bases that you shouldn't go anywhere near. We were in this army truck, 3 grad students and myself. It broke down a lot. We ate dog food out of a can. It said beef and China on the can. We ran some animals over with the military size truck, and that was much better. I asked them several times what we had run over, and all they would ever say is a small forest animal, but it was very tender. The truck was an old military truck, and it broke down a lot. And at first, when the truck broke down, we would all get out and we would forage with all my Russian colleagues for mushrooms and look at the trees. But after a while, that kind of got old, and we stopped getting out and getting excited. And this time that the truck broke down, the grad student stayed in, and the mechanic kind of got out and said, well, it's going to take me an hour or so. And it was just kind of a low energy event. At any rate, I decided that I would go for a walk up the road a bit. We had just come through a village, and all these tiny villages, the story was the same. The people were wonderful, and the discussion always centered on which pet, livestock, or grandparent had been dragged off by these Siberian tigers. Oh. So my hosts were constantly, kind of keeping an eye on me, and so we were in the military truck. The Toyota Land Cruiser had a guy, he was the happiest Russian ever. He had great English. He was coming with us for no apparent reason. That reason will become quite clear in a moment. I went up the road no more than about a quarter of a mile, and I heard this far off, high-pitched whining noise, which was getting louder very quickly. And although we were in the jungle, this road, you could look up and see the sky, and it was actually quite open, and it was a straight spot. And I happened to look up, and this is where the wrong place at the wrong time part of this story goes. I looked up, and this enormous military jet, at least it looked enormous, went straight over me, and the guy flying it looked down. And I remember thinking, look at that. He just flew right over. And I walked, I think, a little bit further. It's all a little fuzzy at this point, but then I heard the sound of these 3 Jeeps, and they appeared to be going at 10,000 RPM. And like an idiot, I remember this so clearly. I saw them come around the final curve, and I'm so polite, I stepped to the side of the road to let them get by, not understanding that I was the reason that they had just come tearing down the road. And they all jumped out, they all had firearms, they were screaming like crazy, all in Russian. And I said a number of times, does anyone speak English? Does anyone speak English? Nothing. And then I made a huge error and I said, I'm American. I don't recall how I went from being vertical, but I did end up face down in this mud puddle. And these guys were just, they weren't beating me per se, but they were poking me with their gun and a lot of Russian screaming. And I just thought, if I had been 15 yards that way or this way, that plane just would have gone over. It truly was exactly wrong place at the wrong time. The Toyota Land Cruiser shows up. Volodya is in there, the happy guy. And he's still happy. He's so happy. He knew exactly what to do. He went exactly to the one soldier who must have been in charge. I don't know how he knew that. He pulled the guy aside. They talked. The soldier was very angry. Volodya was very happy. And then Volodya simply walked over and said, it's okay, come on with me. I got in his car all covered in mud, we went back, the truck was fixed, and, we took off. Sasha, my host, was in the front, so I couldn't really ask him, but I knew I had seen something I wasn't supposed to see, but I was mostly curious about Velodia. So we got into town, that little village that night, we got we found out who had been killed by the tiger in that village. And I pulled Sasha aside, and I think, this is not an exciting ending, but the epilogue to the story is, Sasha, my host, was married to the head, his wife was the daughter of the head of the KGB in Vladivostok, and the only reason we got to do this trip was because they knew they could send someone with us to watch us, and that was Velodia. To this day, I go to sleep at night and I thank all the right people, and then I also thank Velodia. Lying in the mud in the jungle. So that's my story.